Hey friends, welcome to ECLA. I'm Jamie Spagnardi.
And I'm Allison Bemis, and we're so glad to be with you today, even if it's asynchronous. When we first planned this, we had planned for it to be face-to-face, and then we planned for it to be virtual. We thought we'd have a Zoom meeting all together virtually. But then as you're starting to go back into your classrooms now with your little learners, we decided it wasn't best there was no day that everyone could do since we have such a large region. And everybody has different schedules, we decided it was best to do it asynchronous so that you didn't have to take a sub to be away from your little learners, because we know that that's where you're needed the most right now. But we're so glad we can be with you in this way.
So today, we've already done the welcome, so check, got that all finished. So we're going to talk about an overview of the year, what it's going to look like when we do little pieces each month. And then we're going to talk about defining literacy and social emotional literacy and learning, and why would that go together well? Why is that important even more than ever right now? So here we are, we're in September. September 25th is our very first day that we were to be together originally. So that's going to be our kickoff date. And we're going to focus on social emotional learning and literacy together. In October, we're going to have some things so that when you do a virtual STEAM family literacy event, you'll be all ready. And then November, we're going to be doing phonological awareness and phonics, and clicking that in with some leveled readers. We're going to be blending those together. January and February, we're going to go back and we're going to look at learning and just find all the literacy that's in all types of learning experiences. And then March is our culmination. It's our ending of this year's academy. Let us remind you that some of you might have an opportunity to do this on some days when you're in school, but if you're doing it outside the regular school day, we're happy to give you PD credit. So if you will please just email me and let me know who's on your team and how many hours you need, then I can be in touch with you and be sure you get those certificates.
And we will show you where to find our email addresses and how to contact us on the site at the very end of this. So Jamie, help us remember if we forget that at the very end.
Okay, I sure will.
Okay, so just to sort of set the stage, and if you were with us last year, then you may remember this slide, but setting the stage for what you do and why it's so important, John Hattie says to know thy impact. And this is a pretty powerful statistic. So in 1900, only 14% of the world were literate. So only 14% of the population were literate that could read. By the year 2000, only 14% were illiterate. Now we know that's 14% more than we want to be illiterate, but how many years is that? We're talking about in 100 years. We switched the page there. We turned it from 14% were literate to only 14% were illiterate. What's changed in the last 100 years that allows that to happen? Lots changed in education, right? Take a minute and think about all of the changes. Have there been changes about who we educate and how they're educated? Are there more equal opportunities for education now? Do we have early childhood education now? Those are just a few things. If you want to drop us an email and tell us some of the things that you thought of, we'd love to hear that. But a big part of that change has been in society, and it's been because of the work of educators like you. So we just want to stop before we ever begin today and say, we know what you're doing is important because we see it in statistics like this. You are the reason why we've been able to flip that, why we've been able to shift that. And it's by doing activities like we're going to discuss and share in the ECLA and activities that you're already doing anyway. So we just wanted to set the stage for why are we focusing on Literacy Academy.
And the work you're doing is going to even lower that 14%.
Absolutely. So when we say ECLA, again, if you've been with us before, this might not be new information for you, but I think it's good for us to just define it all together. Many times when we think of literacy, we just think of phonics or phonological awareness. And that certainly is an important component to literacy. That's a part of number one. It's part of reading. That's what we think of with literacy. We think of number one, we think of reading. But really literacy is more than that. It's writing, it's speaking, and it's listening. So it's all four components. we will focus on all 4 components. We don't say, hey, this one's more important than this one, so we're going to spend more time on it. We'll focus on all 4 components. And I think you'll see opportunities either in what we do here today or extensions that you could do for all 4 components as well.
Well, you've had a few seconds to read your list, and you're going to notice that the first few things are in your lit kit. So it's time to open up your TJ Maxx bag. Allison's holding up the envelope, and pull out your September envelope.
Yeah, so as Jamie said, we left that up there for you to read for just a minute. And you should find all of those things, or each of those things, in your September lit kit. This is the same format that we'll follow each month, even if we don't have a Zoom session for you to watch. If it's a different kind of video that you're watching, like on YouTube or wherever we link that from, you'll always have a lit kit, okay? So you're gonna open that up, and let's just make sure you have everything that you need in it. If for some reason you're missing something, then just send us an email, okay? So the most important thing that you'll see that you have is a copy of Ruby Finds a Worry. The next thing that you should have is a colorful dice template. And I want to go ahead and say that I'm sorry that our color printer at Greg was sort of messing up. Some of those colors didn't come out as clearly on the dice on some of the copies. So we are going to give you a digital version of this too, if you'd like to print it or email it out to families. We'll make sure you have it that way too. But you see you have different colors. And then you have a double-sided cardstock of this. And you'll see we have several copies of those. We gave you several copies in case you're sending kits home to families and you wanted to have some copies already made. Or you can save them and use them through the years or share them with other teachers you work with. It's your choice what you do with the copies, but we know several of you are making kits to send home to your little learners, so we wanted you to have several color copies if you needed that, if you didn't have access to your color copier. Some things that you'll need from home for today's session that are not in your lit kit that we thought you probably just have is just some paper. It can be construction paper, it can be regular notebook paper, whatever you have. And then you'll need some crayons or markers and some tape, okay? So we'll go ahead and just say pause for a moment and gather those supplies, anything that you might not have, and we will use those for the rest of the session. So this is our model lesson for social emotional learning. SEL stands for social emotional learning and literacy. Ruby's Worry is a beautiful book to read to young children, I think, near the beginning of the school year, any year, but it's especially important this year. As you know, and you know that if you've done any of our trainings over the summer or during quarantine, we always start with this, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We are working and families are working in the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Raise your hand if you have had a hard time finding paper towels. Raise your hand if you've had a hard time finding Clorox wipes. Raise your hand if you read news articles about there might be a meat shortage. Okay. Raise your hand if you have worried about the health of a loved one, that maybe yourself or a loved one that's at risk. Okay. We are dealing, or raise your hand if you have seen someone in a mask today or put a mask on yourself. All of those things 1 year ago, if I had asked you those questions, you might have raised your hand on 1 or 2 of them, but you probably wouldn't have raised your hands on all of them. So I just want to say that that's true of you. That's true of the parents and the caregivers and the families of the children you're serving. It's also true for your children. They're coming, if you're going to face-to-face school, they're seeing people in masks and they're not used to that, okay? Before that, they've really only ever seen people in mask wear. Okay, when they were sick. Mm-hmm. So this is new for them. They're being asked to be 6 feet apart from people. They probably aren't sitting at tables anymore, or you may not even have a whole group carpet time anymore. I know that a lot of schools have taken out carpets and things. So school, even if they are face-to-face, looks totally different. If they're not at school, just the fact that they're learning from home is totally different. So they're really looking for safety and security. We're at those lower levels of blooms. And when we know that we're working at the lower levels of blooms, both ourselves, our children, and our families, we need to be sure all the time, not just this year, all the time, we need to be sure that we are doing some things with social emotional learning. So this book here, Ruby Finds a Worry, opens the door to a really beautiful conversation about anxiety and worries with young children. So you see the symbols we have down here. We'll try to use these with you, or just to bring them up so you know. You will be reading this book. We will be doing a writing, age-appropriate writing activity with this book. We're going to be sharing ideas and talking about this book, and we'll also be listening to each other, okay? So we're going to ask that you pause now and just enjoy this book. Wow, what did you think about that book? What was your favorite part? I think that my very favorite part, and I should have had it open already, was this page. Can you remember what happened on this page? Someone else that also had a what? They also had a worry. And so they shared, they talked to each other. And although this worry had gotten bigger, bigger, and bigger throughout the story, when they talked about it, what happened to their worry? It got smaller. That was my favorite part. Jamie, did you love that part also?
I did. It always helps me when I can even talk about my worries, because when they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger in my head, sometimes they feel like they're a gas and they fill up the whole earth.
Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, I'm going to go on and just put on my teacher hat for a second, and I'm going to tell you this is exactly what I would ask children to do. So just like you paused a moment ago and read the book, I'm going to ask now that you get out your crayons and you get out your paper and draw your worry, okay? Just draw your worry. This is what Ruby's worry looks like. It might be a little worry. It might be a big worry. It might be a medium-sized worry. There might be a lot of colors. This is what the little boy's worry looks like. So I want you to pause for just a moment and draw your worry. Okay. So hopefully you're playing again. And now I want you to name your worry. Okay, so grab a marker or a pencil, and I'm going to name my worry Miss Perfect. Go ahead and name your worry if you haven't yet. But my worry is named Miss Perfect. And I put little eyes and a mouth on her because she's just sitting there judging everything. Does that look like a judgy mouth?
She looks a little startled.
Yeah, she's startled at the mistakes, maybe. Okay.
She watched our video and she's startled because of all the mistakes.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause and ponder. Now, if I were doing this with you in person, we would just take a quiet moment now and we would think about our worry. And let's think about some things that make our worry bigger. So what are some things that make Miss Perfect bigger? When she finds a mistake or several mistakes that I've made. When she thinks about other people seeing those mistakes, it gets bigger. When she thinks about how other people might react to them, or if it will cause miscommunication or misunderstandings, that worry gets even bigger. And what are some things that make it smaller? Think about that. What are some things that make your worry smaller? Jimmy, what are some things that make your worry smaller?
One thing that helps my worry become smaller is when I share it with others, and then they give me either ideas about my worry, or they give me even affirmation that, yes, that is something to worry about. You're not crazy. Because sometimes I worry that my worries make me crazy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, talking to people helps me too. Just like it also helped Ruby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some other things that help me is sometimes I listen to music. Sometimes if I feel really, really worried, I can listen to music and that helps me take a step back. Or I might read a book that's a favorite book, or read a comic book that makes me laugh. Like I love the Strange Planet comics. Those make me laugh. What are some things you do to make your worry smaller if you have friends around, coworkers around? Okay, I want you to think about this now. Put your teacher hat back on and kind of step away from your worry. What are some things that your children are worried about right now? You can jot those down or just think about them. What are some things that make children's worries bigger? What are some things that make children's worries smaller? Okay, so I want to share a little bit about this activity with you. I hope that you see that this is something you could do with your young learners. When we think about the literacy strategies for this, what we're actually teaching is comprehension of this book and character analysis. Because what's happening is when I realize, oh, you know what, I have a worry too. And these are the things I worry about. You know, it doesn't really identify all of the particulars of Ruby's worry. We don't know all of the particulars of her worry or the little boy's worry. We just know that she has one. So children of all ages can relate to that. And their worries might be very different. It might be that I'm afraid I'm going to have to eat green beans for dinner and I hate green beans, right? Their worries, whatever they're worried about, that's okay. Everybody has things that cause anxiety. But as far as the literacy strategy, what they're learning is character analysis and being able to relate to those characters. Piaget calls this schema. So I can understand Ruby better. I can have empathy for Ruby better if I also think about, I have been like Ruby before. I can connect to Ruby or that boy because I have had a worry before. Does that make sense? Jamie's nodding.
Yes. And think about that when I read books and I don't have that connection to the characters or to the author's purpose, it's really sometimes difficult for me to finish that book. And so I that's why I love activities like this to help us ease into that.
Yeah. This would also be an activity that you could have them do and share with their families. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. I do want to note here, we will link in this article and you can get a copy of our slides so you'll see the link to this. I'm going to escape out because I've already got it pulled up here. And this activity that we just did is called externalizing anxiety with a worry monster. So it just turns out this is a really beautiful literacy experience to go with that. Now, it is a little bit of a longer book and there are a few words on each page. So if you are a preschool teacher that's watching this, you might choose to skip some pages, or you might choose to show the pictures and just talk about what's happening on some of the pages. But it still is definitely a worthwhile book for your youngest learners. But I love this blog post here that talks about externalizing anxiety with a worry monster. I'm not going to read it all to you, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we do that. The first thing that you have children do is you have them name the worry monster. Now, I did that a little bit out of order. I had you draw it first and then name it. And I think that's okay. Either whatever way makes sense to you. So the most important thing is that they draw it. So it comes out of their mind and onto the paper, and you name it. That's part of the externalization. And the reason why we do that is because it helps this is not Allison, right? So this is something Allison's worried about, but this is not Allison. When children hold on to a worry, be it about food or about safety things or about whatever their worry is, if they're holding on to that deeply and they're not externalizing it, then they can start like that worry takes control over them. So they see that as this is Allison. Externalizing that allows them to talk about it. And when we think about being able to work on some of those social emotional skills of controlling our emotions, that we are in control of how we respond to things when you externalize it, helps them realize, Miss Perfect is not Allison. Allison can make choices that help her put Miss Perfect in the right frame of mind. Does that make sense? Okay. So, sorry, I got a little ding on my watch. So that's really, really important. Do you want them to be able to separate the worry from themselves? Now, this is an activity that I did with, I have a 14-year-old now, and I did this with him when he was dealing with some anxiety when he was in 4th grade. And his actually, he did this activity. He drew his worry monster and he named his mud mind. So still, even to this day with my 14-year-old, we will say, Elijah, could that be your mud mind telling you that? And he'll think about it. And a lot of times he'll say, yes, I think that could be my mud mind. So what can we do? Mud mind's getting big, worry monster's getting big. What can we do? We can go read a book. We can talk about it together. We can call a friend. We could play a video game. But do you see how we are taking this literacy experience and age-appropriate character analysis, and we're turning it into a deeper social emotional activity? Jamie, is there anything you want to add to that before I close out?
No, I just think that when we think about that curriculum compacting and how we have less time and we need to put a lot into that time, this gives us an opportunity to do that, to work both through literacy and social emotional health in such a way that's natural. It would occur, and families can occur with the family, and it might help the entire family. It's not something that only would help the child.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because so often we think, oh, we have to have science, we have to have social emotional, we have to have literacy. This activity that we just did today could very much be your literacy activity, could be your reading activity, and also your social emotional activity built into one. So I'm so glad you brought up curriculum compacting. That's so important. One thing that I shared with you all that I could do is I could listen to music. Another thing that I often do is teach children some mindfulness strategies. And we would teach it to them before they were upset. So this is where that dice, it looks like this. I just cut mine out and taped it together. So this is where you'll need tape, okay? And we have 2 game cards for you. One is Trace and Breathe, and one is Be Grateful. The other thing that I read recently I think it was a psychology magazine, you can't be both worried and grateful at the same time in your brain. You can't be feeling both emotions at the same time. So if you have a child that is dealing with some anxiety or and you focus on being grateful, then that can be something that helps make their worry monster smaller. So I will show you how to do these. You just roll your dice. Mine landed on yellow, so I have it on this side. So you would do star breathing, and you would teach this to your children. So you start on one point of the star, and I'll let you do this with me now. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And you'll see that I just alternated each line. Now on this one, that's like a figure 8, you could just breathe in for an 8 and breathe out for an 8. Okay, for the rainbow, you could breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Okay, now it doesn't exactly make your worry go away, but social emotional learning is about learning how to control, or part of it is about learning how to control your emotions in different environments. So taking a minute to pause when you feel angry or sad about that worry monster can help regulate and help you calm down a little bit. So that's why we brought that in. For the Be Grateful, the children, if I rolled a yellow, then I would just share with my family one thing that I was grateful for. I could also share a person I was grateful for, a memory I'm grateful for, a place, a food, or something that happened today that I'm grateful for. So these are just 2 mindfulness games that I really like to pair with Ruby Finds a Worry. Now, if we think back to our literacy, okay, speaking, listening, reading, writing, what are we doing with this activity? We're speaking, right? If I'm doing this with a family member and we're listening, okay? So
We're also reading.
We're also reading, yeah. So and then we read the book, And we also did the writing activity where we drew Mr. Scribble, and we could do the journal writing about what makes your worry bigger, what makes your worry smaller. So I just want to show you in that one quick activity, hit all the strands of literacy. And that's sort of what Jamie was saying earlier about curriculum compacting. And I jumped ahead of myself on the slides.
You were just being efficient.
I was. Here's bonus content. Okay. This was something we planned to do when we thought we might be face-to-face. And then we also planned to do if we were going to be virtual is we were going to give you time to set up an Epic account. If you don't have an Epic account, I want to be sure that you, at the beginning of the year, go ahead and take time and set one. Now, at the end of last year, they actually made it free for kids to get on 24/7. Okay. That's not true anymore. It's free during the school day right now. So teachers, you can get a free account and your kids can log on during your school day for free. If you have not, I know some of you are already using Epic, so you can fast forward through this part if you want. It won't be very long, or get a drink of water or something. But this is Epic. If you just go to getepic.com and create your own free account if you have not yet done that, you'll see it's making suggestions here of things I might like. This is based on what my younger son has been looking at on Epic. I just typed in Eric Carle, and you'll see it has some audiobooks for Eric Carle. If I had a child that was interested in bears, I'm just doing a search here for bears. And you'll see it has several different books on bears. It gives you the age level. I can assign these books to certain children. I have a screencast for you that shows you how to set all this up, so I'm not going to take time to do that today. I'll show you where you can find that. But yeah, I just typed in bears and look at how many options I have here. It even has little videos and things down at the bottom that you can find. So if you do not have a Get Epic, GET Epic account yet, I encourage you to go do that. That's just bonus content.
It's another thing for parents too. Families love to have Epic for their
Yes.
children.
Really, really helps.
Especially on the days you're doing virtual school, they can do it during the daytime.
Yeah, it gives kids just so many books. Here's an example of a Magic School Bus audiobook, but they have all different levels of books for elementary age children. When you open the PowerPoint, if you click right here, I made a screencast for you. Now, I made this screencast back in the spring when Epic was 24/7 free, but everything else should be the same, okay? So if you click this video, it's going to tell you how to create your own account. If you click this video, it's going to tell you how to add your favorite books to your library and assign books. If you do this one, how can my students access the library without using parent emails, just using a class code? And when you watch that, it's just my computer screen and me walking you through every single step of what you need to do, okay? And this first one's gonna show you a little bit more about Epic's features too. So again, that is located in the PowerPoint. That was just a little bonus content. This next thing that we're going to show you, this will be the same for every single video that you do, okay? So it doesn't matter what month it is. You will watch a video, do activities like you did today with Ruby's Worry, and then the very last thing that you will always do is a Google form, okay? So this will be new. If you were with us last year and years past and we used Flipgrids, we might use some Flipgrids again this year, but even if we do a Flipgrid, you will always end with a Google form, okay? That's just something we're gonna keep consistent this year. So I'm gonna click on this Google form. It's gonna take me to one that says Ruby finds a worry. I am going to put my answer in. So I will just go ahead and fill this out. So my name is Allison Bemis. How am I feeling today? I'm gonna pick which one of these faces that I am. Now, this one is, I wanted to show you, we'd love for you to share your picture of your worry. And if you did any journaling that you'd like to share, we'd like for you to share that too, or maybe even just a picture of your worry. We would love to see it. You're gonna add that just like you'd attach a file to your email. So I took a picture of my worry on my phone, and then I emailed it to myself and saved it on my computer. So I'm gonna click select files from my device. I saved mine on my desktop. There it is. Just like I would if I were going to email a file to someone. And I'm going to click upload. And that's the picture of my worry now. So when you go down and submit this file, it will send us the picture of your worry. Okay. And then I just want to hear, we just want to hear your thoughts on this. Why is it important for caregivers and teachers to understand a child's worry? How does this book and activity help children progress in their social emotional learning or literacy? Okay, how does it help them progress? Those are some of the things we talked about. How could you use this mindfulness game with littles and their families? And how will you use this book, Ruby's Worry? How will you use this with your young learners? What was your favorite part of this activity? And then Jamie and I, and actually Melanie and Kathy that you don't see on this Zoom today, we are all here to help you. So I'm just going to read this to you. We want to help make your worries smaller if we can. We are always here to listen and to help you think. If you want to share anything about your own worry or anything at all that we may be able to help you with, just add that down here and we will see that. Okay. So this will be
contact you.
And we'll contact you, absolutely, because you will log in to do this form. See how it says right here, not Allison? It's got my personal email address. If I didn't want that to go to my personal email, then I would just switch to my Greg account here, okay? But that's going to give us your email address. So again, you will always end with the Google form. This is the Google form, okay?
We're using Google because we know a lot of you are using Google tools in your school.
Yeah. Now, you obviously have already seen this website because you are watching this in the future, but this is the site we're going to send you, okay? So if you look at this site, it has all of the directions for you that we've talked about today. Our academy is going to be asynchronous, grab your lit kit, all of those things we've talked through this video with you. And we will link in each video right here, so you can click there and find it, or you can click at the top where it says September, and it's going to walk you through these same 3 steps every single video, okay? So make sure you have all of your supplies. It will have the supply list that was also in the PowerPoint. This is where you'll download the Google Slides. So this isn't linked yet. This video is not linked yet because we're filming it right now, obviously, but there will be a video here for number 2. And this is that digital download. So you know how I told you some of the colors didn't come out as clearly on this game, on the printed off copies. If you didn't like that, you can download it digitally and send it out to families that way too there. And lastly, the last thing you'll always do is complete the Google form, okay? If you want to send Jamie or I an email, our email address is always at the bottom of this page. So I don't know why mine's not linked. I'll go on and fix that. But jamie.spugnardi@grec.org, allison.bemis@grec.org. We are here. If you have big worries about something, or even if it's not a worry and it's just something really happy that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear that too, okay? Because we miss seeing your smiling faces in person, and we're so glad to see you virtually. Jamie, is there anything else you want to add?
No, and we're just so happy to get started. We've had a lot of these ideas for a while, and it's just so great to make them happen.
Yeah. So we're glad you're here. We hope that you enjoyed your September session. We will see you back in October for the family literacy session, and we will have October's video posted by October 11th. So
right after fall break.
Right after fall break, we'll have October's video posted then. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.